Welcome back to This Week in Princeton Vikings Athletics here on VikeNation.org and ESPN Media powered by Sidearm Sports. My name is Jason Griefer. Once again, we're joined by Princeton Athletic Director Joe Roberts. Joe, good to talk to you again. Let's get right into everything we've got to discuss this week because there is quite a bit of news and notes going on around Princeton High School as we are approaching the postseason pretty much for everybody, and we'll delve into that as we go along here today. Let's start off with your tennis team, and it was a pretty tough go at the GMC championships, as we kind of thought it would be, just given the quality of play in the league from top to bottom here. Your second doubles team, Avni Patel, Raymond Richard, did finish seventh up there. But like I said, it's going to be tough going in all the way, and it proved to be so. Everybody else was on their game, so to speak. Not to say your team wasn't, but, it's just the way it happens sometimes. How would you evaluate the tournament and the way things went there at the GMCs, and how does that play forward into the sectionals this week?
Yeah, Jason, so I was talking to my former tennis coach at Lexington, and Ron Schaub, who is a pro. His daughter is actually the women's coach at Ohio State, Melissa Schaub. And we were just talking simply about it's conference tennis week. And, he says, well, Mason's a collegiate team. And anytime Coach Teets is running Sycamore, they're going to be, a handle. And you take all of the quality. You saw what Oak Hills did. You see what Lakota West sneaked somebody in first singles, and Lakota East, and it's just a battle. And our conference is a testament to what goes on in tennis across the state. So you factor in the weather was perfect. It was cold, but it was beautiful for both days until the very end on Thursday. We had to stop that match after the first set, the last match, because of the weather. But the weather was beautiful. But then we added in AP testing. And so we had to jockey some schedules around for AP testing, which those are just hurdles that we have to overcome along the way. And again, we saw a lot of great things, and we saw some things that needed to get worked on. But one of the things that I thought our kids did was they never lost their confidence. And what is so unique about tennis, just like any of the other sports, and especially in this, what makes the league so special, they all know one another. And so they were having conversations with one another. Yeah, they're going to go out there and they're going to compete on the court, but then afterwards they're going to slap rackets and they're going to talk about whatever's going on the next day or that night or when graduation is or what have you. So it is a building block and a foundation that Coach Mulholland's doing for our kids right now. And we will be ready to go for the sectional tournament this coming week. And then, if we can slide one through, we'll slide one through, but it's about getting us ready for the next step.
Kind of a similar story with track and field, is they're heading up to Mason for the GMC championships a little bit later on this week as well. How have they looked in training the last week or so heading into this? What's your sense of how they expect to perform up there?
Well, it's go time now. And they took the team up to Euclid over the weekend and competed up there. I know the girls finished third at Euclid, and our 4x1 is still undefeated on that end. But Coach Smith and Coach Braddix, they are very deceptive track and field coaches, if you will. They are clandestine in the fact that they don't like to share a lot of information until this coming week. So now's the time. We've got essentially what we look at 4 weeks leading in for the state championships. And this is where everything will be laid out on the line. So there's some pressure there, especially on the girls' side. But, I'm looking at what some of our kids are going to be able to do on the boys' side with the jumps, looking at what we're going to be able to produce in sprints and especially in a couple of our relays. And I think we're going to surprise some people on the boys' side. Girls, that expectation's already there a little bit. We don't have the same team that we had last year, but I think Wednesday's going to be really exciting. But Friday at Mason, starting at 6 o'clock when the finals begin, I think that's going to be really something to watch. And looking forward to being. I won't be able to be there on Wednesday, but I'm going up on Friday, and I'm looking forward to watching some great track and field. And then, as you said, all of it coincides. We just all stay together, right? So then we'll head right into districts back at Mason, and then we'll head up to Dayton for the regional, and then we're going to go on to Columbus for the state. So it's now's where we set our tone and set our pace, and it's a building block along the way for the finals.
We'll be looking forward to seeing how those results come in, as you said, particularly on Friday. And as you said, also with that relay team and the way they've performed all year long. So interesting to see how they perform against those expectations, as you talked about there. Let's move on. Let's talk about some teams that already started getting postseason play going as well. And that's your softball team. But running the sectional is a short-lived one. It ends in the opening round after an 8-1 loss to Anderson. And we'll recap the entire season next week. Next week will be our season finale. But we look at this game and the way it shook out. You get out to that 1-0 lead early. Anderson comes back with 2 in the bottom of the third. So still 2-1 game, very, very much there for the taking as we go forward. But then Anderson breaks through with 6 runs in the 5th inning. And that's the difference in the game. And they break things open and wind up closing it out by that margin there. Take us through this game and kind of the emotions of it, getting the lead early, and then ultimately seeing Anderson kick the door in with that 6-run 5th inning.
Yeah, and they've got such strong pitching too. And it was great for us to get the bat on the ball right away. I got out there. We had just completed our first at bat, top of the first. And, there was just some momentum going and some excitement. And our dugout was cheering, and you kind of had that old-fashioned softball chants going on again, and there was just a lot of good feeling, and our coaches really were keeping them engaged and energized. And like you said, we were up 1-0, then they jumped 2 on us, and then I left after 4 to get back here because we had events going on here at the school, and I kept in contact with Carmen Reed, who was keeping the book for us, and she just said the wheels kind of came off a little bit. Anderson warmed up and started going. And traditionally, they're a very strong softball program anyway, so take nothing away from what they did. But what I love the fact is all year the positivity and the attitudes of our girls have not changed. And there's still some softball games left to be played. We've got to go to Sycamore this week and get some late game makeups in. But that's for the end of the season that we can talk about, because what Coach Black has been able to do is he's building a foundation for these kids and keeping them engaged and keeping them interested in the sport of softball. And I think we've got a really, really bright future in front of us.
Yeah, that's all you can ask for in a situation, as you said, where you're trying to build. There's going to be some bumps along the way, but nevertheless, you're working towards an ultimate goal over the long term here. Let's talk about your baseball team. And now they've learned their postseason draw. They're going to get going here within the next week here as they draw Withrow in the opening round here. To be the first time that you've seen Withrow on the season here. And you look at the way the bracket's set up, and the winner goes on to the second round and would get Mason in round number 2, which you look at the way the season's gone, you got to win over Mason earlier in the season. A 4-0 win there. You split the regular season series. So some encouragement there, I have to think, when they saw the bracket come out and saw it potentially Mason is waiting in round 2. Obviously, we don't want to look past Withrow, but nevertheless, did the draw go kind of as expected? And what did you make of the fact that you could potentially see Mason in round 2, knowing that you do have a win over them?
Well, the draw kind of went as expected in terms of everyone jumped on. We were fortunate enough, we're the host for the Division I district seed meeting. So everyone kind of played in, and it really looked like everyone was trying to avoid St. X, which that was what it appeared to fall through. But by the time it came up to Princeton, Coach had a great opportunity there. We know what Mason has in front of us. Being able then to get on the line, and then we knew we were going to be able to host a game. That was big. Withrow jumping on against us, that plays into it as well. But it kind of sets us up a little bit where we're going to be able to get enough rotation in our pitching that now anything really truly can happen. It's baseball. And you're right. We split the season with Mason. The game at Mason, it was just a great night in terms of, we were hitting the ball, we were fielding it correctly. We had a couple of things go our way, a couple of lucky bounces here and there. But, I really like where we sit. And, if you grab a first tournament game win, that really gets some momentum going for the kids. And then you go up there and we go back to Mason. We're kind of comfortable there a little bit, but anything can happen at that point. And then next thing you know, if you can get a win there, you're in the district semis and back at Princeton, because we're hosting the district semis here. So, they have a chance to really do some things there. We just got to get the arms going. I saw the kids last night when they got off the bus. We lost a tough one in 8 to Middletown last night, 1-0. But we've got the middies here tonight, so we'll bounce back there and just keep it going. But much like what Coach Black is doing, Coach DeBeal is doing the same thing. He's really maturing and nurturing our senior class that we've had here, but he's building a foundation for what's to come. This time next year, when we have these conversations, we won't be talking about what we had to go through last spring. So, now we're just picking up where we left off and being able to run with it.
Yeah, and the way things set up here, I mean, you look at the seed numbers; they are what they are. But given where you're seated, it could have been a lot worse as far as the draw goes. As you said, you could have unfortunately drawn St. X early on in the tournament, but you don't, and you end up potentially facing a team in round 2 that and that you beat early in the season. So it actually not a bad setup there for sure. Let's switch gears. Let's jump into the pool, I should say, and let's go with the water polo teams. Let's start with the girls first. As we said, they're getting ready to head into the regionals this week. They've got Milford in the first round tonight, which you're actually hosting there at Princeton High School. They're the 3 seed, and win there, you get the Cincy Mavericks in the semifinals on Thursday. There, how have they looked in training leading up to this regional now, where it's you got to win to advance?
Yeah, you've got to win to advance. I think I want to change our phrase of Viking Natatorium to the home of water polo across Ohio, because Coach Tamaris and Coach Shell have done an unbelievable job. But we're so fortunate to be able to host the regional championships here, along with the state championships next week. So being able to keep our kids in our own pool and in our facility, which is second to none in the area, and it's a wonderful opportunity to be able to do. But the girls have been continuing to do what they need to do to keep us moving forward. We've talked about this before. It's a lot of it has to do with endurance. A bunch of it's going to have to do with arm strength, and a lot of that's going to come as these girls continue to mature and get older and get more into the sport, that they really truly enjoy it. Our coaching staff is really doing a good job with them and putting them in the right position. The Mavericks are a very, very tough opponent to face. And so we'll see how those come through as we move through the rounds. Tonight, it will be a really exciting match to watch.
Over on the boys' side, we'll talk about your varsity squad here in just a moment, because they're also in the regional. They're the top seed in the regional, but also JV squad just head up to the state tournament over the weekend. We saw in the early rounds did get a nice win over St. X to kind of get things going right there. But nevertheless, they've proven themselves as the way it's gone all year long as another team, all year long. It's been a contender.
Yeah, Coach T, he's putting those young men in a position where they need to get ready for varsity. And in order to do that, you've got to get them the exposure that they need. And it's one of those seasons that, it just is a long season, but it happens so quick because it's every single night. So he comes off of a match last weekend, and they hop in the vans and they head north to Toledo, and they play in the JV state, and then they get back down here, and now we've got the regionals this week. So I think he was really impressed with how the kids played, because they saw some good competition, obviously, and getting them ready for like we said, like for the varsity slots that they come in. And then this week, drawing the number 1 seed in the region. That was big for us because we're letting Sycamore and St. X kind of fight each other through. We'll have a very difficult battle with Milford, Coach T's old stomping grounds, if you will, and then we'll see how that plays out for Saturday's regional finals.
Yeah, you look at the way things set up there. As you said, you're going to play Milford as they beat Mason in the opening round. You look at that, and you beat them a couple of weeks ago in the Packer Classic, so you have some familiarity there and some recent familiarity with there. And as you said, also Sycamore and St. X, let them duke it out there. But look at the way things set up there as well. You've already seen them on the year as well. Played Sycamore 3 times, beating them twice, and you went 2-0 against St. X here. Let's focus on the first one in front of us here against Milford. As I said, it was just a few weeks ago in the Packer Classic where they played Milford and beat them. How do they look to draw off of that, given that it was just, as I said a couple of weeks ago, still pretty fresh in the mind?
Yeah, I don't know if Coach is going to really focus more on the offensive end on this or more on the defensive end. And what I mean by that is, are we going to keep our front line back more in order to try to prevent shots on goal, or are we just going to try to put a whole bunch of shots on? And I probably will lean to knowing our students and knowing our players, we're probably going to try to be more offense than we are defense, because obviously those who score the most win the game. But,
Yeah.
you know, defense will certainly come into play there. So I think, you know, much like we did at the Packer, let's try to get out on them early and try to put enough up there, because we trust our defensive back line so much that we know that we'll be able to put some stops in. And yeah, they're going to probably score a couple of goals on us. It's just the nature of the game. But if we can get more in on them quick enough, then we'll put them in a disadvantage and they'll be playing against the clock.
Just on the cusp of a big time performance there. We're expecting that, as you said, hosting the state tournament. So all things are setting up very, very well for both water polo teams. It'll be interesting to see how that goes forward there, and see what happens when we talk about that next week, and we wrap up the entire spring sports season next week, which is fun to say, given everything we've had to go through just in the world over the last year or so. The fact that we can wrap it up next week, but we'll be looking forward to doing that on the season finale next week here on This Week in Princeton Vikings Athletics here on VikeNation.org and ESP Media, powered by Sidearm Sports.